Welcome to Life Stories, where one woman's birthday turned into her quiet erasure, and her comeback became a battle cry for millions. Imagine dressing up for lunch with your only son, only to end the day locked in a facility, stripped of your name, your rights, and your voice. No explanation, no goodbye, just a suitcase, already packed. But what if that silence held a secret? What if the woman they tried to disappear had one last move left? A move that would expose a betrayal deeper than blood and a love that refused to stay blind. This isn't just a story of survival. It's about what happens when a mother stops forgiving and starts fighting. Let's begin. Eleanor Winters didn't plan on vanishing. That morning, she had brushed her graying hair into soft waves, slipped on her favorite navy sweater, the one with the pearl buttons, and even applied a hint of lipstick she hadn't worn in months. She thought her son, Chase, was taking her out for lunch. After all, it was her 62nd birthday. There was no cake, no laughter, only silence and a small grocery store bouquet wilting in his hand. "Happy birthday, Mom," Chase said, avoiding her eyes. "Get dressed. I made a reservation." He drove them out of Charlotte in his spotless SUV, windows rolled down just enough to let in the rustle of early autumn leaves. Eleanor chatted nervously, filling the quiet with stories of a neighbor's new dog, her tomato plants, anything to keep him present. But Chase just nodded, a tight smile plastered across his face. He wasn't listening. The drive grew longer. The streets narrowed, then gave way to a winding path flanked by maple trees. When the car finally stopped, Eleanor looked up and felt her stomach lurch. Maplewood Hills Assisted Living Facility. "Chase," she whispered, voice cracking. "What is this?" He didn't answer right away, just stared ahead, jaw tight. "It's time," he said finally. "You live alone. You've been forgetting things. This place is safe, comfortable." She blinked, trying to process the words. "Forgetting things? I made pancakes for you this morning. I remembered your favorite. I even set 2 plates." His face hardened. "Mom, don't make this harder." That's when he opened the trunk. Her suitcase was already packed. Eleanor's breath caught in her chest. He'd gone through her things, her drawers, her private corners. Inside, the building smelled like lemon disinfectant and something overcooked. A cheerful woman in scrubs greeted them with a clipboard. Eleanor stood frozen, while Chase handed over documents. She caught glimpses: medical history, insurance, a power of attorney form with her name, and his signature. He'd planned this. She didn't cry. Not then. She let them lead her down a sterile hallway to a beige room with an adjustable bed, a view of a brick wall, and the hum of a too-loud air vent. That was her birthday gift: silence and confinement. She sat on the edge of the bed with her coat still on as Chase patted her shoulder awkwardly. "You'll settle in," he said. "I'll call." Then he left. He didn't call. 3 days passed. Eleanor didn't eat. The food was bland, the lights too bright, the nurses too kind, calling her sweetheart like she was a child. One of them unplugged her phone and said, "Your son thought it might be less stressful this way." By the 4th night, she lay awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she'd lost herself or simply been erased. That's when she remembered the book. In the lining of her old purse, one she always kept nearby, was her late husband Thomas's Bible. She had tucked it there out of habit, its leather cover worn smooth by time. On impulse, she opened it. A folded piece of paper slipped out. A lottery ticket, 2 weeks old, unchecked. She almost laughed. What was more ridiculous, a birthday ambush or a forgotten lottery ticket? But something about it felt fated. The next morning, while everyone was in the dining room watching reruns of Wheel of Fortune, Eleanor crept into the staff lounge and logged on to an old desktop computer. Her hands trembled as she typed in the numbers. She blinked. Then again, the screen didn't change. $1 million. She covered her mouth. It wasn't joy. It was fear. Cold, electric, skin-prickling fear. If Chase found out, he'd take it, just like he'd taken everything else. Her choices, her freedom, her trust. That night, Eleanor didn't sleep. By morning, she had a plan. She found Ruby, the youngest nurse on staff, kind-eyed and no-nonsense. "I need to talk to someone, a lawyer, privately." Ruby didn't ask questions, just nodded. By Friday, Eleanor was sitting in a cramped storage room with Aaron Cole, a volunteer attorney. She showed him the printed confirmation. He read it, then looked at her. "You want to disappear?" "I want to live," she said. They moved quickly. A new trust, a new phone, a new identity. By dawn Sunday, Eleanor slipped out the side door wearing donated clothes and carrying a duffel bag of essentials. To everyone at Maplewood Hills, she was just another confused woman who wandered too far. But Eleanor wasn't confused. She was free. And what no one knew, not yet, was that she had every intention of coming back. Have you ever trusted someone so completely, only to realize they were erasing you in silence? What would you do if the person you loved most became the person you had to hide from? Because Eleanor Winters isn't done. In fact, her story is just beginning. Continue to part 2. The house in rural North Carolina was nothing like the one Eleanor Winters had left behind. It sat low to the ground with chipped red brick, a sagging front porch, and the kind of mailbox that had to be pulled shut with a bit of twine. But it was hers. Or rather, it belonged to the trust Aaron Cole had helped her set up. There were no pictures on the walls, no sound but the occasional groan of old pipes and the wind whistling through pine trees. For the first time in decades, no one called her mom. No one called her at all. She should have felt lonely. But Eleanor felt something else, a strange mix of fear and relief. She woke up early each morning, made herself oatmeal and weak coffee, then sat on the porch wrapped in an oversized flannel jacket, watching the trees. She was relearning solitude, relearning herself. But silence, Eleanor realized, has a way of echoing. She couldn't stop thinking about Chase. Not the man who signed away her rights. Not the man who packed her suitcase behind her back. She thought of the boy with scraped knees who used to climb into her lap and whisper, "Don't tell Dad I cried." She thought of the teenager who once sat silently in the car after his first heartbreak, letting her hand rest quietly over his. Had that boy ever really left? Or had she just closed her eyes to the man he was becoming? One rainy morning, Eleanor opened the fireproof box hidden beneath the hallway floorboards. Inside, the lottery confirmation, the trust paperwork, the prepaid phone Aaron had set up, and a blank journal. She opened to the first page and began to write. "If I vanish again, let it be by my own hand, not someone else's." That evening, curiosity clawed at her. She powered on the old laptop Aaron had wiped clean and created a fake Facebook profile. With trembling fingers, she searched Chase Winters. His face stared back at her from the profile picture. Clean-cut, charming, smiling like the world hadn't just turned upside down. She scrolled. One post pinned at the top. "If anyone has seen my mother, Eleanor Winters, please contact me or the Charlotte Police Department. She's been missing for several days. We're very worried about her mental health." Hundreds of comments. "Praying for you. You're such a good son. Let us know if we can help." Eleanor blinked through tears. Not from sadness, rage. He wasn't just lying. He was building a stage, a performance, and the world was applauding him. But what shattered her completely wasn't the words. It was the photo he used. Her. On her 58th birthday. Wearing a glittery party hat, laughing with frosting on her nose. Chase beside her, holding the cake knife, beaming. He'd used love like a prop. Her hands trembled as she closed the laptop. She couldn't let him control the story. 2 days later, a plain white envelope arrived in the mailbox. No return address, no handwriting on the outside. She opened it slowly. Inside was a single sheet of paper. A loan document dated 12 years ago, signed by Eleanor Winters and Thomas Winters. She stared at her name. The signature was hers. Every curve, every loop. Except it wasn't. She never signed this. She flipped the paper over, looking for a clue, a message, anything. Nothing. Her stomach turned. She pulled out her old documents, the folder Aaron had helped her build before she disappeared. 3 more forged signatures, different dates, different amounts. A cold realization settled over her like fog. Chase had been stealing from her for years, and from Thomas before he passed. Eleanor sat in the dim light of her kitchen, her eyes fixed on the paper spread before her. The silence pressed in around her again. But this time, It didn't feel like solitude. It felt like war. She called Aaron. I need to meet. There's something you need to see. They met at a roadside diner 2 towns over. He came in wearing a navy windbreaker, no briefcase, just a concerned look. She slid the papers across the table. They're forged. He scanned them slowly, face hardening. This is criminal, Eleanor. Federal level. If he used your name, your husband's, even after his death, this goes far beyond family betrayal. I want to report him, she said. But not yet. Aaron raised an eyebrow. Not yet. I want to control the timing. I want to do this on my terms. He nodded slowly. Then we start building the case, quietly. Back home, Eleanor opened the journal again. He took my name, my freedom, my trust. I'll take back my voice. She began documenting everything. Old bank statements, tax forms, letters Chase had sent her, every loan request, every excuse. She searched public databases, cross-referenced business accounts Chase had access to. And then she found it, a business license. Filed under the catering company she and Thomas had started back in 1986, long closed but still active on paper. The signature? Thomas Winters. Filed 2 years after Thomas died. Her hands went cold, her mouth dry. She called Aaron again. I have more. They met again. This time, Aaron didn't just nod. He placed a hand over hers. You're not just building a case, Eleanor. You're building a reckoning. That night, she didn't sleep. Not from fear, but from the weight of clarity. She had believed that being a mother meant forgiving, enduring, swallowing pride to protect your child. But what if that protection became the very thing that destroyed you? Can unconditional love survive once it's been weaponized? Or is there a point where even a mother must walk away to survive? What Chase doesn't know is that Eleanor Winters isn't hiding anymore. She's hunting. Part 3 is coming. You won't want to miss what she does next. The courthouse in Charlotte hadn't changed in 20 years. Still the same beige brick, the same heavy wooden doors with smudged glass, the same echoes in the hallway that made your footsteps sound lonelier than they were. Eleanor Winters stood outside it for a long moment, staring at the building like it might bite. She wore a simple gray coat, her late husband's watch on her wrist, and a pair of low-heeled shoes that clicked softly with each step she took toward the life that had once belonged to her and was now being contested. Chase was already inside. He sat at the front of the courtroom, hands clasped tightly in his lap, his lawyer whispering furiously beside him. He looked up when she entered, offered a smile that might have fooled anyone else. But Eleanor saw it for what it was. A mask. A desperate one. The judge began proceedings. In the matter of Eleanor Winters' competency and financial guardianship, the words felt surreal. Her. On trial. Chase's attorney spoke first. He described her as forgetful, erratic, easily manipulated. He played voicemail clips Eleanor didn't even remember recording, chopped into fragments, stripped of context, full of fear and confusion. He painted her as someone fragile, confused, vulnerable. And for a moment, Eleanor watched herself become a ghost in someone else's narrative. Then she stood. My name is Eleanor Winters, she said, her voice steady but low, the kind of quiet that draws people in instead of pushing them away. I am not confused. I am not unstable. I am not forgotten. She handed the judge a thick envelope. Inside, a signed psychiatric evaluation by an independent doctor, a full log of financial transactions since her departure, records of the trust Aaron had helped her build, an affidavit from the lawyer who witnessed her lucid and informed choices. But she didn't stop there. I also have these, she said, lifting a second envelope, but not handing it over. This contains documentation of forged signatures, false loans, and fraudulent tax filings, all tied to Mr. Chase Winters. The courtroom went still. I'm not submitting them today, she said calmly. Not unless I'm forced to. Aaron nodded at her from the bench. The judge leaned back, brows drawn together, hands folded over his notes. I have read enough, he said quietly. This court finds Miss Winters to be fully competent. The petition is denied. All assets and autonomy are hereby restored to her. The gavel hit the bench. And just like that, Eleanor was no longer on trial. She was free. But Chase wasn't. 2 weeks later, federal charges were filed. Identity theft, fraud, Forgery, embezzlement. The Department of Justice had received Eleanor's file, the one she'd mailed quietly without fanfare before the hearing. Chase was arrested at his office, his name splashed across headlines. Eleanor didn't attend the arraignment. She didn't need to. The world could now see what she'd always known. That his smile was a lie. That love, when weaponized, becomes something far crueler than hate. That night, she returned to the house in North Carolina. The air felt different, lighter. She sat on the porch as the wind stirred the trees, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was waiting for the next bad thing to happen. She was rebuilding. She used part of her winnings to launch the Winters Foundation, an organization offering free legal aid to seniors facing financial abuse. Ruby, the nurse who first believed her, joined as a founding board member. Aaron became the legal director. The foundation didn't carry Eleanor's face, only her fire. Letters poured in, messages, stories, from women and men who had been silenced, dismissed, or locked away for their own good. Eleanor read each one, every night before bed. Some nights she cried. Most nights she wrote back. She never heard from Chase again, not directly. But once a letter arrived. No name, no return address. Inside was a photo. Her and Chase, he was 6, missing a front tooth. She had a smudge of flour on her cheek and a smile that was real. On the back, in his handwriting, "You always believed in me. I'm sorry that wasn't enough." She stared at it for a long time. Her hands didn't shake. She didn't burn it this time. She folded it gently and placed it in the fireproof box, not as a keepsake, as a record. Because some wounds don't need to be erased to be healed. They just need to be named. On the 1-year anniversary of her escape from Maplewood Hills, Eleanor returned, not as a resident, but as a guest speaker. The common room had been remodeled. The lighting was better. The smell of bleach had been replaced with coffee and cookies. She stood at the front and looked out at the faces of the people still living in the places she had once called her end. "I'm not here because I won," she said. "I'm here because I refuse to be erased." The room was quiet. I know what it's like to be dismissed, to be told that love means staying quiet. I know what it's like to mistake silence for peace. A few people nodded. One woman wiped her eyes. "But you're not finished," she said, her voice rising. "You're not weak, and you're not alone." After the speech, an elderly man walked up to her. He had a cane and a tremor in his left hand. "I watched my daughter sign away my house," he said, voice breaking. "I thought I was crazy, but then I saw your story." Eleanor touched his hand gently. "You're not crazy. You're not the only one. And now, you're seen." That night, back at home, she sat by the fireplace. The wind outside rustled like pages turning. She opened her journal and wrote one final line. "This isn't the end. This is the beginning of someone else's freedom. Because I spoke. Because I survived." She closed the book. The fire cracked softly beside her, and Eleanor Winters leaned back in her chair, not erased, not defeated, but reborn. What stayed with you most after hearing Eleanor's story? What part broke you or healed you? If this story touched you, comment 100 to let us know. And tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Share this with someone who needs to hear that silence doesn't have to be the end. Thank you for watching Life Stories.